Hey everybody, uh, this is Haley with Turnkey Solutions. I am here to say hello. I haven't met all of you. I don't know if I've met any of you, but I'm new here as the marketing administrator, so I'm just here to introduce this webinar this morning. I hope y'all can hear me okay. We got most of you already here at the webinar, so that is awesome. So this webinar, we've played around with a couple titles, but basically it's about passwords and how passwords will not protect your business from cyber criminals and thugs. Passwords are like so 2018. So I'm here to introduce a couple cool things that are happening this month. I don't know if y'all know, but April is the 20th anniversary of Turnkey Solutions, so that is April 12th. So please follow us on social media. I'll be doing some free live giveaways every Friday in April. Please, if you don't already follow us on social media, that is Facebook and LinkedIn. I'll be posting on both of those. And we will also be having an open house for our 20th anniversary, which again is April 12th. That's going to be a Friday. Stay tuned. You'll be getting some email invitations with some more details about that. We'd love to have y'all here for that open house. And another really exciting thing is that Turnkey was recognized for excellence in managed services by the CRN, which is a brand of the channel company. They named Turnkey Solutions to its 2019 Managed Service Provider 500 list in the Pioneer 250 category. So that annual list recognizes U.S. solution providers with innovative approaches to managed services. So we were super excited to have received that. That was an honor. And I would like to introduce Henry. Most of y'all know Henry, I'm sure. So he's going to take over this webinar.
All right, thank you so much, Haley. And look, I've got a huge favor to ask. Would all y'all mind, if you can, or at least one or two of y'all, just say something in the chat thing to let us know you can hear us? There is absolutely, well, not nothing, but few things worse than going a whole hour into a webinar and finding out that the audio is muted or something. All right, cool. A lot of y'all are saying that you can hear us. Great. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody saying that we got you now. All right, well, we're going to get started with this, and let me give a little brief introduction for some of you that are not current customers. We started this in 1999, like Haley said. We've been doing this for 20 years now, and we have grown and been blessed to support clients just of every size, industry. It's been a wild ride. And what we have kind of focused in on is we have started in the last pretty much decade, really focusing on clients that need a lot of security and uptime and just need their IT to do their job. We do provide 24/7 support to clients from just around the world, mostly the U.S., and dialing in a little bit closer. Most of our business is in the Baton Rouge, New Orleans, North Shore, kind of southeast Louisiana arena, and we have an office in Baton Rouge and an office in Metairie, and that's just a lot of fun. Just some facts about us. Now, a little bit about just the boring stuff about me. We'll take the picture off in a second so we don't scare away young children. But I am a lifelong IT strategist, passionate cultivator of security and success for our clients. This is not my first rodeo, and I just love what I do around the arena of security and helping our clients succeed and use technology as an advantage in their organizations. I'm one of the co-founders of Turnkey Solutions. Other guy is Harold Robinson. And most of my time is focused around strategy and design and a lot of the big picture stuff for our clients, and it's a lot of fun for me to do that and help our clients kind of see what they can do to make the most of tech. And so that's kind of the background on me a little bit. And along the way, as we go through this webinar, if y'all have questions, there's a couple ways. The Zoom function, it has the ability to do chat, and I'll keep an eye on the chat. But if you have other questions that come up that you're okay if they get answered offline, then fire them off to ask@tks.la. That's just our team chat room, and our email, and that will get monitored, and we'll get right back to you today about that, whatever your questions are along those lines. So without a whole lot of further ado, let's jump into the subject matter at hand about how passwords just no longer are a sufficient protection for your businesses against cyber criminals, thugs, and all the craziness that we are experiencing in our world today. Now, before we get too far into this, what I wanted to do is I'm going to try out a quick little poll with y'all, and I'd like to see if you have everybody. This is the interactive part here. I got a quick question for you, and it should have popped up on your screen with just one little simple question. We're going to give you 30 seconds or so to answer this. How many places do you use the same or something really similar for a password? And be honest with you, I'm not tracking you by person, and we're not going to, be embarrassing or anything. But there's let's see how many people finish that up, and I think we just about have everybody. A couple more. We got 2 or 3 more people, and let's see, one more person. We're waiting on that. All right, cool. Now let's share the results on this. Here's how many people. Here's how y'all answered. How many places do you use the same or similar password? I want you to kind of just keep this in mind. None. I use completely different passwords. It's about 20% of y'all. That's awesome. You're a rock star. About 40% of y'all say that you use it in 1 to 5 places. 6 or more is about 20%. And everywhere you can is about 20%. And I got to tell you, this is not rigged, but your answers are spot on with what the industry shows, which is just chilling. It's kind of interesting. So good. So hold that in your mind, that a good percentage of y'all, that's how you answered, is that you use them. About 80% of y'all use it in more than one place. All right, so we're gonna stop that for a second and head on. About 80% of y'all use your passwords in more than one place. Now, let's stop for a second and answer the big picture question. Why do we care? Why do the hackers want your passwords or want anybody's passwords? Let's go back to the simplest of all principles: follow the money. There is a tremendous amount of things that we can say in life that the answer is follow the money. But in the simplest perspective, hackers are just people, and they're going to go the easiest route. They're going to go for the simplest score, the simplest payout. What we are finding, all the things that people can steal from the actual credit cards to maybe credit card numbers, is that a lot of things are shifting in the industry research on what's going on in the dark web. There's a lot of places where researchers are tracking these things and kind of getting a good idea of what the criminals are paying for things. Credit cards are down to as low as 25 cents. Stolen passwords, however, are on the rise. Those are going up to as much as $160.15 on the criminal underground marketplaces in the dark web. and just for a single viable password to a site like Facebook or a bank or something like that. Now the credentials for multiple sites for one person is trading for as much as $1,200, $1,200 for one pack of credentials. Then what that means is that that has now passed the value of a medical record. A medical record, you know, like your charts from the last time you went to the hospital, or any of those kind of things, just a good pack of your medical records. That used to be the big deal, $1,000. What we're finding is that your passwords to multiple sites, if a criminal can bundle those up and package it and put it out on the market, that goes for way more than even a medical record. So short version, why do we want the passwords from the criminal's perspective? Because it pays. It's good money. Simple version. Now, from the other side of it, as a business owner or the leader or the compliance officer at your organization, what is the cost of it? We know what the motivation is from the criminal's perspective, but the cost of it, and tons of studies that have gone throughout the years, this one is in 2018. It's very current data, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60% of U.S. small businesses have been found to fold after a cyber attack within 6 months. And this is an article from Inc. magazine. But they dug in a little bit more on the details of this, and they found that the U.S. on average in the United States in 2018, the cost of each record to a company that they had to pay, and lawyers' fees, and paying for their clients, their customers to have credit monitoring, and all the things that are associated with the cost of having been the victim of an attack or a breach, is about $233. Now that's up from the year before, but what that means is that for every record in your data set that's breached, like if you have a small database, that's one thing. But if you have a large database, the bigger the data, the more expensive the breach is for you. And in the average breach cost across all countries across the 2018, now some of these are some monster companies, but was about $3.8 billion. That is a massive cost, and just across the world, what we're finding is that the cost of each breach was up about 6% from 2017. And again, sadly, the stats are that for small businesses, the end result is about 60% of them go out of business within about 6 months following a breach. So the cost is huge. Now, digging in a little bit more about kind of what's going on and how this is happening, there's a report that's done by Verizon, Ponemon Institute, IBM. They all put together their resources. Cisco, a bunch of huge companies work together to survey all their customers, all the CIOs and CEOs at all these large organizations to get information about what's really going on behind the scene. And what they're finding is that something, and this report is done every year, has been for like 11 to 13 years. I think this is 11th edition, for 2018. And in this version, this report, they found that 58% of the breach victims were small businesses, not those monster corporations, but 58% were small businesses. 50% of those breaches were carried out by organized criminal groups. They weren't a 13-year-old in their grandmother's basement. They weren't an internal employee. It was an organized criminal group that was attacking a small business. Now, 76% of the time, they were looking for money. 76% of the breaches were financially motivated. They were trying to get a payday. And 68%, this should be the most chilling stat in here, 68% of the breaches took months or longer to discover. And there's a wealth of statistics around that. And sadly, from a lot of companies that we've had the opportunity to talk to after a breach. They call us up. This is a very legitimate sad statistic. So 68% of breaches take months or longer. What this picture paints, folks, is that no matter how small you are a target because you have things that pay for criminals to take. And that should be the takeaway from all of the data thus far. Now, in terms of what's next, like what's going on in the hackers world, and are they making success with this? Now we know that the businesses are paying a lot when they get a breach, but are they succeeding? Are they getting passwords? Well, let me dig in a little bit and kind of show you some of the things that undoubtedly will affect you personally, just happening in 2018 and into 2019. In March of 2018, the Under Armour company, they had an estimated 150 million users of their MyFitnessPal program get breached, and that included usernames, email addresses, and hashed passwords. Now remember, 80% of y'all said you use the same password in most places or more than one place. And that's just you. Now from there, the next one is in May, and these are just some of the big ones that I pulled together to kind of share with you. There's thousands and thousands of these stories, but in May of 2018, Twitter begged like 330 million of their users to change their passwords after what they just gently called a glitch. That wasn't a glitch, that was horrible programming. A glitch caused data to be stored in readable text, data including passwords. And remember, 80% of y'all said that you use the same password in more than one place. In September of 2018, Facebook had basically the same issue with 50 million users, and most of y'all probably use Facebook. So that's something, and apparently it's been going on since July of 2017. So continuing on, in November of 2018, 500 million guests of Marriott since 2014. So if you've stayed at a Marriott or any of their properties or affiliate properties since 2014, your password that you used at Marriott, including other information too, like names, social security numbers, or credit card numbers, anything that you gave them was breached from 2014 forward. And the interesting part is that recently the researchers that have been calling over this hack have figured out that it was more than likely the part of a Chinese intelligence gathering effort. So that's I don't know what you call that. Is that a criminal underground or a mafia or a state agency? But either way, it's big organizations coming after ultimately little organizations and individual people for our data. And this ought to give us a little bit of a fright, especially when you think that this was 4 years running that this hack was actively going on. So the last one that I'll talk about is in the line of, is this working for the hackers? Somewhere in the neighborhood of 772 million unique usernames and passwords from thousands of different websites were exposed by a group of hackers, and a good group of guys put it up on put a masked version of it on a website called Have I Been Pawned? I'll give you a link to this in a little bit. But this was just January. This was about a month and a half ago. 772 million usernames and passwords from thousands of sources were discovered to have been breached. And it wasn't just one company, it was thousands of places. So and that was from a couple different places. I think it was January 17 this year. So this is just this is getting a little out of hand in terms of where your passwords are going. Now, let's dig into this a little bit more. What happens? We've already established that more than likely each one of you on this webinar right now, your usernames and passwords are in some database somewhere, and we'll dig in a little bit more on that later. But how do they use it? Once they get this, what are the hackers using this data for, and how do they progress forward with getting money from this? Backing up one step, most of the hacks that we're finding today start with or have a feature of this in the beginning where the hacker is gaining information on you. They're looking at social media, or they're sending an email from you to your employees, or the phishing emails. They're basically doing some background research on you, and it takes minutes to do this on several public-facing websites to just figure out a little bit about where you are, who you work for, that kind of thing. Now they're going to go use that 772 million username and password database, or the 50 million from Facebook, or the 500 million from Marriott. They're going to use the credentials that we already know about you. They will have figured out right here that you work at this hospital, or you work at this school, or you work for this organization, this manufacturing facility, or this bank. And they're going to figure that out about you. Then they're going to see that, okay, in this database over here where I can pay a little bit of money, I can pay 160 bucks. I can figure out his username. I can buy his username and password. And then they're going to log in as you using a good username and password, and they're going to hop onto your computers, because they will have probed your network, or they will have sent you a virus that allows them to have a remote control to your computer or something along that line. And they're going to move around your computers. They're going to find the weakest link in your network and gain admin access, or give themselves an administrator username and password on some system, your servers or something along that line, and execute whatever their game plan was or is. They may log in and they may find out that you don't have access to the accounting system, but you do have a PayPal account in your browser. So they're just going to log into PayPal and send themselves some money at the worst case scenario. And you stored the username and password in PayPal on your Chrome, which was nice of you. Or they may find out that you have access to the EMR. So at your hospital, so they're going to log in and print a couple reports, logged on as you, and figure out, they're going to figure out a couple thousand of your customers or your patients' medical records. Then they can take those 1,000 medical records and sell them for $1,000 a piece. So that's an easy million that they just made with your username and password, because they figured out that you work at this hospital and they bought your password. So that's kind of the simplified version of how it works. And remember, 68% of breaches took months or longer to discover, because it might take the hackers a little bit of time to figure this out, but they're going to find out all this stuff over time and take their time and do this well, what we're finding in the majority of these big breaches. And 76% of them, again, remember, were financially motivated. They're looking to pay their second house off, or they're making a note on their boat too. So this is the kind of a short version of how we're watching nowadays hackers move through organizations. Now, if you don't think that's true, I hate to tell you this, but we have personal experience at Turnkey Solutions. Last year, we had a very small 4-computer construction company in Livingston Parish here in Louisiana that in roughly about almost a year ago, they clicked on something they shouldn't have clicked on, and they got a virus on their computers. The hackers watched them. Literally, they were able to monitor their screen movements, and they learned how they worked. They learned who they talked to at the bank, and they learned how their business overflowed with cash flow was. And what they did is they waited until the construction company was the day before a big job was to get kicked off. They waited to the day before when the most possible money was in that bank. It was in the bank accounts. They logged in, they contacted the bank, told the bank to close out the money and transfer all the money to this other account. But they did that all from the office manager's email account and from her computer. And they took all the money, closed the accounts, and the next morning when the owner went to go pick up supplies and pay subcontractors, the money was gone. So it was all preventable had the staff been better trained, had they had the basic protections in place. And this is a tiny one story, and I have enough to probably take the next 10, 15 hours worth of your time if you want to go through every story that we've talked about that Turnkey is aware of or has experienced with prospects and companies coming to us over the last year. So this is happening and it's real, and we need to prepare for it. Now, let's say they can't buy your password. Let's dig in a little bit more. You say, well, you know, how else are they getting it? How are they figuring out my passwords? They can guess it. A lot of y'all have passwords that if we, you know, the old school stuff, we figure out what your kids' names are because we look on Facebook and we figure out the name of your dog and kind of car you drive. We can probably guess some of your passwords. They can social engineer it, like they can send you an email from Office 365 that looks pretty legit and say, hey, click here and put in your new password. They can brute force attack your systems by trying 1,000 passwords and within minutes. They can do this thing called credential stuffing, where they buy that $772 million database and they try all those passwords on your account. Or they can do I won't go into what a rainbow attack is, but it's just the algorithms and the logic and the ability of these of the programs to try these things is getting better. And like I mentioned in the story from a client of mine or prospect, sadly they didn't go with our solutions, and they're I hope they're in a better place now, but we're seeing all over the place malware that can just watch your computer, and it'll just, whatever you type in for your passwords, they immediately know it. So finally, sadly, the reality is that whatever you put in for a database, for a password, is stored somewhere, and Marriott, Facebook, Twitter, somebody knows it. And let's deal with this question. I have people come to me and say all the time, but Henry, all this stuff you're saying, I get it, but I have got the coolest password ever, and you're never going to get this. Well, the problem with great passwords is we see these. I don't know how many of y'all have these at your office or you've seen them. I had a hard time not putting up. We've seen some we've seen like in person, but I just scraped this off the internet. But I have seen this, I don't know, thousands of times over the years, and probably 100 times just in the last 2-3 months when we go to interview or do an audit for a prospect. Stickies with passwords. The problem with a great passwords is that they're long and hard to remember. And what's going to happen is, like 80% of y'all just said, you're going to use them in multiple places, or we're going to write them down on a piece of paper. And what we're going to find is that a really good password just generally doesn't work with how our human brains are coded. You got too much stuff going on. You got to remember that you got to pick the kids up at 3 and get them to dance, and that your boss needs this report, and that we're out of cheese and milk at the house, and all the other 97 things that's going on in your brain. And the big, long, huge password that took you about 2 minutes to figure out and kind of craft, you forgot it. So you're going to write it down. So that's a huge thing, issue with passwords that are really strong. And if you want to back up a second and say, well, yeah, but my password is really good and I do remember it, don't forget that the hackers can just buy it. And that the password, a good pack of your passwords is worth like $1,200 to hackers. so they're motivated to find you. And if you don't think that's true, here are actual screen scrapes from a criminal dark web marketplace. I'm sad to deliver this to you. This is an actual copy of the screen of a dark web marketplace where people are selling Yahoo passwords for $10 or a Gmail password for $25. Here's another in that same marketplace where they're selling a social security information. This is a legit marketplace, kind of like a criminal Amazon. Western Union accounts. He says here, I bring you freshly USA hacked Western Union logins. So I do not have additional information on these accounts. So, you know, he's got a little disclaimer, but they're highly trusted. Like he's used a few of them before he goes to sell them, just to verify, test the product. And this is tax season. Here's some W-2 tax forms from 2016. They're only $7.99. They're on sale at this marketplace. So this stuff is a booming, great business, and we need to be prepared. It is just that simple. Now, a couple final nails in the coffin on this. If a hacker chooses to crack your password, instead of buying it, I'll kind of really quickly deal with this. There's a website, How Simple Is My Password? And there's another website called Pass Fault Analyzer Tool. There's two little sites where you can put in your password and see how awesome it is. And just the computing power behind that website is going to try to see how hackable it is. The basic 8-character common password took this one website, How Simple Is My Password, 52 seconds to crack. Let's mix it up, make it really, really complicated, and, you know, put the asterisks and the greater thans and all the fancy stuff, no English words in there. Took them 20 days to hack it on this one website, but this other one here, it only took them a day. So that's the value of those really kind of old school basic passwords, especially the shorter ones. These are all 8 characters, and let's say that we've got a really great one because ours is longer. Well, a two common word password, if you use English stuff in your passwords, took this Pass Fault Analyzer under a day to hack. 3 common words under a day, and 5 uncommon words, like whatever this is. It took that one website under a day to hack that. So the complexity of your passwords, if they have not been stolen, if you change them every 2 minutes, and if you remember them perfectly, is still hackable, even by public-facing free websites with very limited computing power driving them. So, and all of this leads to the sad realization that we've got to come to, that even complicated passwords can be hacked. Your awesome password can be stored insecurely by somebody else. And I promise you, I wrote this slide. I'm not smart enough to write the slides while I'm doing this webinar. But so this is wild and crazy. 80% of users across the internet reuse passwords across accounts. And 6% of users use the same password on all online accounts, and 46% of employees use personal passwords, like they use the one they use for their Facebook at work. So that is the reality that we're faced with, and I'll summarize this to say that in the end, in 2019, friends, that the short version is passwords and usernames. Those two things put together is just not enough. It is not enough to secure your information personally or your work account. So ultimately, now that all y'all are thoroughly irritated with me because I've just described a lot of very depressing things, what do we do? How do we move forward, and how do we make this something that we can take to our advantage? I'm going to give you 4 simple password rules for 2019. This is my opinion. This is borne out by Turnkey Solutions experience, by tons of industry expertise, but I think this will get you a very solid foundation. We're going to start with rule number 1. Use multi-factor authentication everywhere that you can. We'll dig into that in a minute. All of this we'll dig in. Monitor the dark web for your credentials. The longer the password, to a degree, is better, because we understand that passwords still exist, and different passwords at different places. So those 4 rules, and let me dig in a little bit on how they all work, and we'll actually show you a couple tools. I'm kind of excited about this. We'll show you all a kind of a live demonstration of a few of these things. So the first rule for 2019 that I'm going to recommend you use is use multi-factor authentication everywhere. Now, what is multi-factor authentication? Or the geek in me really just wants to say MFA, because that's what the IT folks call it. So multi-factor authentication is short, using more than one thing to log in. Some examples of it is like text messages. Your bank, I have my bank sends me a text message if I log on to a computer that I've never logged on to their website from. The next idea is email codes. A multi-factor authentication is some websites, they will send you an email when you log on for the first time from this computer, or every time, and you got to go to your email and grab that. Now, text messages and emails can be, I can steal your text messages. All I need to know is your cell phone number, and I can buy a SIM that clones your phone. And emails are wildly simply breached. I just need to go to one of those databases or figure it out, but I can buy your password or hack it and be reading your email at the same time you read it. So what's another idea for that? How about like your card, the HID card, or the card, the access badge? Those are wildly clonable within a minute or so, if I'm within about 10 or 15 feet of you with like very cheap equipment. The thing that I'm going to recommend that you look at is use a unique thing. Some people call it a token that is harder to crack. For example, a good one, old school, your thumbprint. A lot of computer systems have that available. Most of y'all have probably seen somebody, usually it's the person at your office that has access to the bank accounts, has one of these little RSA key fobs. Or what I'm going to demonstrate is a system that uses the unique code and DNA of a cell phone. Not your number, but a unique token and piece of code and cryptography that's stored only one time on a cell phone. And we'll show you that in just a second. Now, where should you use multi-factor authentication? Short version. Everywhere you can. If it's possible, if you log into a system in like Facebook, your bank, your bill pay system, anywhere where they offer you multi-factor authentication, use it. Please set it up. Even if it's one of the less preferred systems, it's better than nothing, and it makes it that much harder for a hacker to log in. Why does it make it that much harder? We'll show you in a second, but think about it. If I have your username and I have your password, but I don't have that token, I don't have your thumbprint or your RSA key fob number or your cell phone with its unique DNA on it, I still can't log in to whatever system is protected with that system. Now, what about that? What systems are possible to protect with multi-factor authentication? It's growing. Let's put it that way. A few years ago, it was a smaller list, but it's growing and it's almost everywhere. There are multiple technical standards that more and more websites and systems and computers and online platforms are implementing. We're seeing servers, web portals, VPNs, Windows machines, Mac machines, Office 365, Google, Amazon, Citrix, Salesforce.com, everything out there. All the big companies and most of the small companies understand that this is a layer of security they need to offer to their client base, so they're adding this rapidly. Now, let me show you an example of what using multi-factor authentication in your computer environment at your office would look like. What I'm going to show you on my screen here is I'm remoted into a computer at my office, and I'm going to just cross my fingers and really hope this works. And I'm also remoted into my personal cell phone. So you can see it at 10 a.m. I was supposed to get ready for the webinar, and I promise this is going to end at 11. So you can see this is my cell phone. I'm remoted into a computer at my office that's protected with multi-factor authentication, and I've got my cell phone over here. So let's say I'm a hacker and I know my password. I know Henry's password. I'm going to put it in, and because I bought it on one of those huge databases, I'm going to put it in because I logged into the server. What's going to happen on my phone, let's say I'm on vacation somewhere, I'm going to get this little pop-up on my phone that said, "Ooh, did y'all see that? Do you want to log in?" I'll fire up the application that's driving that. And this computer is sitting here waiting. It accepted my username and password, but it did not accept the whole login because I didn't give it all the information necessary. And if I don't log in, if I don't give it the password, if I don't authorize the login fast enough on my cell phone, it's not going to allow me to log in. It's going to eventually error out, say advanced authentication timed out. So the hacker can have my username and password all they want, but they're not going to log in because they don't have that extra factor. Now I'm going to put it in the password. I'm going to log in again this time, and on my cell phone, I'm going to approve the login. And I'm going to put that in there on my cell phone. You should see it pop up again, and I'm going to approve the login. And the computer here is going to have it's going to get that token, that special authorization, and it's going to let me in. And that's the simplest version of it. That is as simple as it gets. That extra layer would allow, even if your password got stolen, even if your password was weak and it got hacked, without that extra factor, that extra piece of asset or information, the hacker's not going to be able to get into your computer. So let me ask you another quick question here. I've got a second poll for you, just kind of as a thought exercise more than anything. How many of y'all, or not how many, but how old is your oldest password that you're currently using? And I'll put this on the screen for just a few seconds, just so you can kind of think through. If I did have a 5-10-year-old password, if it was stolen, but it was protected by another factor, like a token or an RSA key or a thumbprint or any one of those factors, and we're going to close this out in just a second. Think that through. It doesn't have to be precise, but how old is the oldest password that you can think of that you're using out there somewhere? Like, do you still have a Facebook or a MySpace, God forbid, or a Yahoo account or something that, you're back in 1999, you put up a Yahoo account or something. So how old is that oldest password that you've got out there. I'm going to close out the polling in just a second. If you're online, then we got a few more of y'all that haven't answered the question. We're going to close this out. What we're going to see is that what we want to allow you to do is to understand that a lot of places you're not remembering to change that password, but if you had that extra layer of protection, it would protect you still, because the hacker can have your username, they can have your password, and they still can't get in. All right, we're going to wrap that up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and boom. All right, I'm sorry I missed a few of y'all. So the results, and this is awesome. This is fantastic. Uh-oh, it's ancient. Over a year old. I'll show you how to figure out some of these, how to kind of assess this. But if your password is under 6 months old, then maybe the hackers haven't found it. But if it's been out there, if you have a password somewhere that you're using that's been out there for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, it is a little sickening. In a minute, I'll show you how simple it is to find out where people have passwords for you and where those have been breached. All right, so let's look at that. The dark web. This is again that marketplace where people can find out what passwords you have and where they're at and where they're trading it. It's just simply the unpublished part of the internet where criminals work. And how can you monitor the dark web? Well, if you're a customer of ours already, and you're on one of our managed services plans, we're already monitoring your corporate domains. If you'd like to add on your personal accounts like your Gmail or your Hotmail or those kind of things, just call us. We can add that in for you. Most of y'all at no cost. But we are currently monitoring your domains for your company. And that's if you're not a customer of ours, there are services out there where you can monitor that, where you can subscribe to somebody doing that. And let me show you just today, just real quickly, how to check check to see if your username and password has been pawned. Now, has been stolen. Basically, what I'm going to is haveibeenpawned.com. It's spelled a little funny, and I'm gonna just hack myself here. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna put in my personal Gmail account, and I'm gonna put it in there, and it's not gonna show you my passwords, but what it's gonna show is that this is that company, that guy that maintains a database of just, is your username on any of those hacker databases, and it's a free service. You should try it out. What I see is that in October 2013, my account at Adobe got hacked. This collection one that just got released in January, it's there. We're not really sure what websites it was. Dropbox, any old accounts that I have at Dropbox. Let's see. Exactus, I don't know exactly who that is, but just tons of other places. MySpace, my sad little MySpace site got hacked in 2008. But if you have an older password, if I was using an older password, even these places that were 2013 or so, they could be using. So I can't recommend that enough. Another one that's a lot of a little bit more chilling data, and if you will contact us after the fact, I will be very glad to talk with you and do this for you at no cost. But even this system requires two-factor authentication from me. I'll put in my one-time token there. But let me show you this. This is, I'll show you a little sickening data that I can show you from my website, from a service that we provide our clients. This right here, hopefully you can see it. This is now this is the kind of a demo version of the product, so it's only showing the first 4 characters of it, but this is the actual username and password that I used at MySpace back in 2008 or whatever, and it was stolen, or that this company became aware of it in 2016, and that's my password. It's at least the first 4 characters of it. This is the encrypted password that was used somewhere. We're not quite sure yet. At least this company hasn't released it, but they're showing that password, and we can put that in a free decryption tool, but a hacker could use that just as well. So monitoring the dark web is a service that you can subscribe to. There are multiple places on the web. You can check it at haveibeenpawned.com, and we'll give you that address again, and that's free, and the rest of it's free for existing customers. So I can't recommend you that enough. Keep an eye on the dark web. Now, third, and we're wrapping up. Third out of 4 rules: the longer the password to a degree is better. And I'm going to give everybody as a free gift, I'm going to give you your new password for 2019. It's an awesome password. Get ready to write this down. It's a cute version of all brown cows love Chick-fil-A. This password is huge. It's long, and you remember that statistic where we were showing how like really long passwords, that one website predicted that it could only hack it in about 12 million years, but this other website, Passfault Analyzer, said it could be hacked in like 1 day. Well, check this out. This is why I love this password. Is it Passfault Analyzer, and you can go there as well, by the way, PASSFAULT.com. and try a sample password. Don't put in your real password, but it's saying it's going to take it, whatever that is, centuries, a lot. It's going to be forever before it hacks it. So that is a very hack-proof password, and I'm really proud of myself. But your passwords are being stored unsafely by other people. So even if you don't put this down on a sticky note and put it on your monitor for your janitor to check out, that password's being stored unsecurely on Marriott, Facebook, Twitter, and just thousands of other places. And again, remember, too long of a password will push people to write them down or to reuse them and recycle them, which we've already talked about. So a stronger password will help, but remember, it is not the only thing, because what you don't control is what other people do with your password. When you use it somewhere and Facebook stores it in a clear text file, and then hackers take that database and then sell it. So that won't work as your sole protection, but it's better than nothing. And you might want to find something that's a little shorter than all brown cows love Chick-fil-A. But fourth rule, and we'll kind of be done here, is that reuse your passwords at your own peril. Remember that if you use your password only at one place, and a hacker does get it, and they find out by looking at your LinkedIn and your Facebook and your all these accounts, they find out that you work at where you work at, the password that they stole still won't get them in if you're using completely different passwords at work. So please remember to use different passwords elsewhere, at everywhere you go. In summary, our 4 rules, Turnkey Solutions guidance for 2019 is: everywhere possible, use multi-factor authentication. You have to monitor the dark web for where hackers are using your information. Use the longest password possible that you will remember, and use a different one everywhere. So, like, what do you do with all this information? I got to tell you, I am just honored that you've hung out and you've stuck with us thus far. And I have a couple things that we want to hand to you. If you will go to turnkeysaw.com/cybersecurity tips, I have there for you a free executive report that you can share with your coworkers. You can download and make it your own and work through it and kind of pass it out. But of 7 critical IT protections. As well, at the same site, you can sign up for a cybersecurity tips that we're going to send once a week to your email address. You can opt out at any time, but it's just a one-liner. There's no sales and marketing in it. There is just a real nugget of here is a protection that you should know about, or here's a new thing that we just saw. If you sign up for those, we will be able to offer you a free audit of your online and network passwords. We'll check the dark web for you. We'll see where you're known. And we'll also be able to, if you'd like us to check the work applications that you use and see which ones will work with what versions of that multi-factor authentication. Another important thing that we have to offer you is follow us on social media because there are frequent, about once a week, slightly different news updates there about things that are going on in the industry that you should be aware of. That last Facebook hack, we put it up within minutes of it being discovered on the dark web and shared it. Well, I guess it was about a day technically, since it was from after our experts had alerted us to it. We vetted it and we put it out there. So we're going to give those out to you. We'll also be giving out information about all the upcoming events, webinars like this that you can share with your coworkers, and the cool little giveaways that we're going to have for our 20th anniversary celebration that's going on all month of April. And with that, I am pretty much done here. We have a couple questions that have happened on the chat engine or the chat board. Let's see, I think Taylor asked, what's your opinion on using randomly generated passwords, 12 to 15 characters, and storing them on LastPass? My thoughts on LastPass and any of those sites where they have basically password vaults and password generators is that they are to be used with caution, because everything that we've talked about thus far, a good password can still be hacked and traded and sold on the dark web. So it should not be your only factor of protection, but it is a good one. And I don't see a whole lot of other questions. If there's any other questions that y'all have, then please let me know, or be sure and ask us online afterwards. Be sure and go to turnkeysol.com/cybersecurity tips to sign up for the free offer there and get the latest information that we can get you. And if you have questions after the fact, be sure to email us at ask@tks.la or call us anytime, 225-751-4444, and we will get back to you with your with everything we can do to help. And that's it, folks. That's the entire content I've got to share with you. We are so honored and blessed to be of service. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have feedback afterwards, if there's something that you'd like us to talk about in a future upcoming in our April or May webinars, or if there's information that you want us to share about any specific things or anything we can do to make this time a better investment for you, please let us know. And that's all I've got to share. So thank you very, very much for your time and your attention, and for most of y'all for your business. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great day.